Time to boot up and suit up, folks. It's the last campaign. It's the last ride. It's the last victory. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. You know, I really enjoyed this series with Belisarius. It's the last battle, the last call. And I'm going to give my unbiased perspective on this. It's from Epic History. You know my name. My name's Kit. This is Americans Learn, and everything that has a beginning must and will have an end. And so, my fellow Romans, my true Romans who eat true Roman bread, who drink true Roman wine, it's time to face off against the foul barbarians who think that they could do better. Well, we're not going to let them get away with it. One last ride. One last charge into glory. Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your swords and shields. We go onward to victory. And since I'm in charge of the ones and twos, let's get ready to play this video. But before we do, if you're a true Roman, you'll be sure to support the original content creator, Epic History. The original link is in the description box below. True Romans stand forever. Let's play this video, folks. Once I hit the play button, we begin the countdown to the end.
544 AD. Eastern Roman General Flavius Belisarius and 4,000 troops have arrived at Salona, poised to cross the Adriatic to Italy. 4 years have passed since Belisarius' great victory over the Ostrogoths.
Yes!
But in his absence, the Eastern Roman position in Italy has collapsed. After several coups and assassinations, the Goths have chosen a new king to lead them. A brilliant warrior who is also wise and active.
He's a barbarian. Don't use words that would properly describe a true Roman. All right? He's a jerk.
His name is Totila.
Tortilla!
While
You know what? I think of tortilla. How does that sound?
Emperor Justinian had been distracted by the war in the east and ravages of plague, Totila had attacked. He swept to victory against a demoralized Roman army that had been left without pay or supplies and led by corrupt, squabbling generals. Many Romans chose to switch sides rather than fight.
Those are not true Romans.
Much of what Belisarius had achieved in 4 years of campaigning is undone. Only Rome and a few other cities and ports are still in Roman hands. Belisarius, veteran of great Roman victories against Persians, Vandals, and Ostrogoths, will face his toughest campaign yet. A struggle once more for Italy, against the odds, and against a formidable enemy. First, a big thanks to our video sponsor, Displate.
Ooh.
For those who don't know, Displate create affordable, high-quality metal posters that allow you to decorate your home with unique collectible artworks that reflect your interests and passions. Displates are printed in the EU and expected delivery is just 4 to 5 business days.
Oh.
They're shipped in secure, elegant packaging and can be put up in seconds using a simple sticker and magnet system, so no need for drilling. They're easy to swap around, durable and lightweight, printing is extremely high quality, and there's also a range of framing options. At Epic History TV's own Displate homepage, we've just launched an exclusive range of artwork from our Belisarius.
Yes, the Belisarius collection is by far the most superior, so get that right away. So we're going to fast forward through this here real quick, but if you want to help out, go to the description box, click on the original link, and then go there and check that out to get all the promo codes if they're still available, which I don't know, they could be, maybe. You have to go see. Let's go ahead and get our shields and swords ready and get ready to kill some barbarians. Barbarians are not men. I refuse to acknowledge them.
Belisarius seems to face an impossible task. With just 4,000 inexperienced troops, he cannot risk facing the Goth king Totila in battle.
Tortilla.
For the time being, he must remain on the defensive. He has an early success when he is able to relieve and resupply the garrison of Dryas, which had been on the point of surrender. Then he moves his force up by sea to Ravenna. But Belisarius finds that every move he makes in Italy to reinforce a garrison or extend Roman control is hamstrung by a lack of troops, supplies, and money. He sends his old rival, John, nephew of Vitalian, back to Constantinople with an urgent appeal to the emperor. We have arrived in Italy, most mighty emperor, without men, horses, arms, or money. And no man, I think, can carry on a war without a plentiful supply of these things. Belisarius asks above all that his household troops, his famed Bucellari, be released from service in the east and sent to join him in Italy. Belisarius withdraws to Dyrrachium to await the emperor's reply. Totila, meanwhile, tightens his grip on central Italy, and in late 545, he advances on Rome.
No!
The Eternal City is held by just 3,000 Roman troops, commanded by Bessas. For months, the Goths have been intercepting supplies sent to the city. Civilians are already starving. The garrison will be next. The city cannot hold out for long. A few months later, John rejoins Belisarius at Dyrrachium with some reinforcements. But not for the first time, the two generals disagree about their next move.
Oh, come on!
John wants to cross to southern Italy and march overland to Rome, a journey that could take 40 days.
Okay.
Belisarius thinks they'll be too late to save the city. He wants to get troops and supplies there as fast as possible, which means sailing directly to Portus, a 5-day voyage in favourable winds.
Yes.
John can land in southern Italy, clear the region of Goths, and meet Belisarius near Rome.
Brilliant!
Belisarius' plan risks dividing his small force, but it may, at a stroke, secure Rome and southern Italy for the emperor.
Good. Come on.
However, his last campaign is to be plagued by misfortune.
No.
When Belisarius arrived in Italy, things went wrong with him daily, for he had clearly incurred the enmity of heaven. Belisarius sails for Portus, accompanied by his troops and his wife Antonina.
Okay.
But they are hit by a storm and have to put in at Dryas.
Curse you, Poseidon.
They are spotted by Goths besieging the port, who send word to Totila.
No.
By the time Belisarius reaches Portus a few days later, the Goths are on high alert, ready for any attempt to relieve Rome. Totila knows Belisarius will try to move supplies from Portus to Rome along the Tiber River. So 10 miles downriver from the city, he builds a fortified wooden bridge with towers on each bank filled with Goth warriors. It's a formidable obstacle that Belisarius...
Well, I'm surprised that the barbarian Goths were able to build that. And before I see anyone type in the comment section below, excuse me, I am a descendant of Goths. The Goths stole all of this from the Romans. There. And that's an unbiased opinion.
will have to break through to save Rome. Meanwhile, John lands with his troops in the south. He quickly routs local Goth forces and secures the region. But despite appeals from Belisarius, John refuses to march to their rendezvous at Rome. He cites the presence of 300 Goths at Capua, who shadow his movements and convince him that he would be marching into a trap. Belisarius can wait no longer. He leaves Isaac in command at Portus, with strict orders not to leave their only secure base for any reason.
Yes, Isaac, don't do anything
He also
stupid.
sends word to Bessas in Rome, ordering him to make a diversionary attack on the Goth camp. Then his convoy of 200 reinforced galleys begins to row up the Tiber, packed with troops and supplies.
Come on,
An
Come on.
infantry force supports them on the right bank.
come on, babies.
After clearing an iron chain that lay across the river, they reach Totila's fortified bridge.
Yes!
Thanks to skilled reconnaissance, Belisarius not only knows its location, but its exact dimensions. He has built a taller tower, which floats on 2 barges. The Romans push it up to a Goth tower and drop a burning boat packed with pitch and tar on top of it. The tower, with scores of Goth warriors still inside, is incinerated.
I mean, oh my goodness, the horror of war. Those poor Goths. I mean, those poor people. What a horrific way to go. We should edit that laugh out. Editor, edit that out.
Goths now race from their camp to join the battle and throw back Belisarius' river assault. Heavy fighting breaks out around the wreckage of the bridge. But there is no sign of the diversionary raid by the garrison of Rome. Bessas, it will emerge, has decided not to risk his own men. Belisarius' troops gain the upper hand and start to dismantle the bridge. But then, a messenger arrives with news that the Goths have captured Isaac, left in command at Portus.
Belisarius, I'm surrounded by morons. Isaac, John,
Belisarius, for once, seems to lose his usual cool head. He assumes Portus has been captured, along with his wife and the army's only refuge.
Let's fight.
Without waiting for more information, he turns his entire force around to launch an immediate attack to retake Portus. But when Belisarius gets there, he discovers that Portus is quite safe. Despite his orders to stay put, Isaac had been captured, leading a reckless attack on the Goths in pursuit of glory. Now, crucial moments have been lost. The Goths are reinforcing their position. To renew the attack would be futile. Belisarius' attempt to save Rome has failed. He is overcome with despair. Then he falls sick with fever and comes close to death. 10 years after Rome fell to Belisarius, the city falls to Totila.
No!
Gates opened by starving Roman troops. Procopius records that just 26 soldiers and 60 civilians are slain, before Totila orders his men to stop the killing. Within Rome, the Goths find just a few hundred civilians, hungry and destitute, sheltering amid the monuments and temples of what had been the world's greatest city.
Look away, Aurelian. You don't want to see this.
Rome is a ghost town. Totila decides to raze it to the ground and begins demolishing the city walls. When Belisarius hears of this, he writes to the Goth king. Among all cities under the sun, Rome is agreed to be the greatest and most noteworthy. Any insult to these monuments would rightly be considered a great crime against the whole of humanity.
Yes.
For by such an action, the men of former generations are robbed of the memorials of their virtue, and future generations of the sight of their works. Belisarius adds that if the Romans win this war, they'll show no mercy to the man who leveled Rome. Totila changes his mind. Having destroyed Rome's gates and much of its walls, he marches south, taking the last of its inhabitants with him. John retreats behind the walls of Dryas, and southern Italy is soon back under Goth control. Rome, the eternal city, is abandoned. We are told it is forsaken by all living things. But doubtless there are those desperate enough to roam the empty forums and deserted streets. In the spring of 547, Belisarius, recovered from his illness, makes a personal reconnaissance of Rome to inspect its defences. Word of his movements reaches the Goths, and Belisarius and his escort have to fight their way out of a dangerous ambush. But the Roman general has seen enough. He has decided to reoccupy Rome. There is no Goth garrison to oppose Belisarius, but strategically it seems madness. How can he expect to hold the empty city? For 25 days, he and his men work furiously to lay in supplies and shore up the city's defences before the Goths return. Their presence encourages some Romans to begin moving back into the city.
Hashtag make Rome great again. Make Rome great again.
By the time Totila and his army arrive, the Romans have rebuilt much of the walls with loose stone, but they haven't had time to make new gates. The Goths attack, confident of victory. The Romans have a nasty surprise for them. Caltrops spread over the approach routes to maim Goth men and horses.
Yes.
For 2 whole days there is savage fighting at the open gateways. But Belisarius' men stubbornly hold their positions. A few days later, the Goths prepare to launch another attack. This time, the Romans are so confident, they come out of the city and fight the enemy in the open. Totila's own standard-bearer is cut down.
God.
The Goths are routed. Totila, harangued by his own men for neither destroying Rome when he had the chance, nor garrisoning it, withdraws to Tivoli. At last, Roman fortunes seem to be on the rise. There's more good news when Emperor Justinian decides to send Belisarius more reinforcements, around 2,500 men. Belisarius is ordered to link up with them at Tarentum, before re-establishing control of southern Italy.
That's right. John, you better show up.
He sails from Portus with 900 picked men. But once more, ill winds force him off course. He has to land at Crotone, a hostile shore. Despite their experience, his cavalry fail to set sentries while out foraging for supplies, and a large force of Goth cavalry takes them by surprise.
Come on!
The Romans are outnumbered 4 to 1. Many of Belisarius' best men fall in the fighting. The rest of his force hurriedly re-embarks and sails for Sicily.
I'm not angry.
Humiliating withdrawal for Belisarius, a general who's conquered nearly all before him, now chased out of Italy by a small band of barbarians. Belisarius' wife, Antonina, has been by his side throughout the campaign. Now she returns to Constantinople. As a close friend and confidant of Empress Theodora, she hopes that in person she can persuade her to send Belisarius the troops and supplies he so desperately needs.
Come on.
The mission will prove futile. When Antonina arrives in the capital, she learns that Empress Theodora has fallen sick and died. At this point in the war, the barbarians became unquestionably masters of the whole West. Though the Romans had been at first decisively victorious in the Gothic War, as I have previously recounted, the result for them was that they had not only spent money and lives in huge amounts and to no advantage, but they had also lost Italy. Belisarius' second Italian campaign ends in frustration and failure. In January 549, he is recalled to Constantinople, allegedly at the request of his wife Antonina. Soon after he leaves, the Goths finally take Perugia. The next year, they take Rome. Goth fleets begin to raid Sicily and Dalmatia. But Justinian continues to ignore Totila's offers of a generous peace, because he has, at last, assembled an army big enough to take the war to the Goths. He awards command not to Belisarius, but to his old rival, Narses the Eunuch.
That nutless wonder? I'm not disappointed in Justinian, but his stock, in my book, is starting to plummet greatly, and I mean greatly.
Chamberlain of the palace. Narses leads the army into Italy in 552. He decides to act fast and force a decisive battle against Totila at the first opportunity. He gets his wish at Busta Gallorum. Totila risks everything on a massed cavalry charge against the Roman centre. He is met with a storm of arrows. It is a debacle. Totila himself is among scores of Goth lords who perish. Goth military power in Italy is broken. Within 2 years, Narses will win more brilliant victories against the Goths and Franks, and bring the war in Italy to a victorious end. Belisarius' feelings at news of Narses' triumphs can only be guessed at. Joy and gratitude for a Roman victory, but bitterness perhaps that he'd had to fight the war for so long with so little support. After 25 years commanding Roman troops, Belisarius' military career seems at an end. He lives as a rich and famous patrician in Constantinople and serves as trusted advisor to Justinian. Little more is heard of the great general for several years, until 559. And now, after a great lapse of time, as he once more put on his breastplate and helmet and donned the familiar uniform of his younger days, the memory of past exploits came flooding into the old man's mind and filled him with youthful ardor. Kutriggers, Turkic warrior nomads, perhaps descended from the Huns of Attila, have menaced the Eastern Roman Empire for decades. Justinian uses a combination of bribes, fortifications, and shrewd diplomacy to keep them at bay.
Okay.
The system does not always work.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
In 559, their chief, Zabagan, leads the Kutriggers south across the frozen Danube.
All barbarians are the same. They're not bringing their best. They're not bringing their brightest.
They split into 3 groups. Zabagan himself leads 7,000 men towards Constantinople.
How dare he?
They bypass the outer fortifications, the long walls, which are crumbling and undefended. There are hardly any troops in Constantinople.
I'm sorry, what?
And as the Kutriggers draw near, panic spreads. Justinian knows there is one man in the city he can rely on. He summons Belisarius and orders him to take charge of the city's defense.
Yes.
The great general, now almost 60, gathers 300 veterans and a crowd of citizen volunteers and marches out to face the enemy.
Oh my God.
he sets an ambush for the advance party of 2,000 Kutrigers. When they've entered the trap, his veterans attack from both flanks, hurling javelins.
Good.
Then Belisarius leads forward his main force in a head-on charge. His men scream and roar to terrify the enemy. Horses drag branches to stir up dust and hide their numbers. The Kutrigers are hemmed in, attacked from all sides, unsure of the enemy's strength. They panic and flee. In the words of the historian Belisarius, the Romans followed them in an orderly and disciplined pursuit, making short work of all they could lay their hands on.
Glorious!
The barbarians were slaughtered in great numbers as they galloped away, without even turning round to look back. Belisarius has won yet another famous victory. Yet 3 years later, after a failed assassination plot against the emperor, he finds himself in disgrace once more.
Why?
Under interrogation, the conspirators name members of his household, who in turn implicate Belisarius himself. It's flimsy evidence, but Belisarius is persona non grata for 7 months, before Justinian restores his honours. This incident spawns a medieval legend that, as punishment, Justinian had Belisarius blinded, and he became a beggar at the gates of Constantinople. The story was a favourite of 18th century neoclassicists, with its dramatic themes of tyranny, injustice, and charity.
Yes, and of course the soldier right there is one of his veterans, in absolute shock that his great general has been reduced this far. It is a tragedy. Shame on Justinian for not supporting Belisarius earlier on.
But there is no contemporary evidence to support it.
Yeah.
3 years later, a single line in the Chronicle of Theophanes records the death of one of Rome's greatest generals. In March of this year, in the 13th indiction, Belisarius the patrician died in Constantinople, and his property accrued to the imperial house of Marina. Nothing more is said. The year is 565. Belisarius would have been in his mid-60s. The fate of his wife, Antonina, is not known. As for Procopius, his great work, History of the Wars of Justinian, is published in the 550s, within the lifetime of Justinian and Belisarius. It is an astonishing achievement, from an author who witnessed many of its major events and knew many of the great figures involved. It comes to be regarded as one of the greatest and longest histories to reach us from the ancient world.
Glorious.
But Procopius also writes another account of these times, unpublished in his lifetime, known as the Secret History. In its introduction, he writes, "I have been forced to conceal the real causes of many of the events recounted in my former books. It will now be my duty, in this part of my history, to tell what has hitherto remained untold." What follows is a scandalous assault on the reputations of Theodora and Justinian, Antonina and Belisarius. Procopius describes the imperial couple as vicious, scheming, and above all, greedy for money.
Well, okay, they might have made some mistakes, okay, but I don't know how I feel about Justinian being written in this way. Yes, he made a mistake. You know, come on.
He asserts that Theodora had been a notorious prostitute in her youth, and that Justinian is possessed by demons.
Yeah, Procopius, you are definitely have been someone who's been bribed by barbarians.
Antonina, he claims, is a serial adulterer who holds the pathetically devoted Belisarius under her spell. Many of their actions, even major strategic decisions, are attributed to self-obsession, lust, and manipulation.
Lies. All lies.
The secret history remains little known for 1,000 years, until a manuscript copy is found in the Vatican Library and published. Historians have debated its contents ever since. A common view is that this work stems from Procopius's later disillusionment with Justinian's rule, the wars, taxes, and crucially, the influence of Theodora and Antonina. For it is a ferociously misogynistic attack, in which women are insatiable, scheming, deceptive, and vengeful. But it is...
Procopius, man, I think you missed out your time. You were born too late to be on the internet. Oh, you were born... No, you were born too early. Too early to be on the internet. Too early to be on the internet, Procopius. There would have been a community for you, buddy.
It is also clear that much of the secret history is deliberate hyperbole and parody, not to be taken literally, or perhaps even seriously.
He's trolling. He's trolling.
Emperor Justinian died 8 months after Belisarius, in 565. In such an age, to reign 38 years and die in bed aged 83 was itself an astonishing achievement.
That's a miracle for a Roman emperor.
His funeral, an event of stunning magnificence, saw him laid to rest in a golden tomb within the Church of the Holy Apostles in Constantinople. He left a Roman Empire that stretched from the Caucasus to the coast of Spain, from the Alps to the Atlas Mountains. These conquests came at a vast cost in lives, treasure, and human suffering. Nor could they be sustained.
Nope.
3 years after Justinian's death, the Lombards fell upon Italy, conquering most of the peninsula. In the 7th century, Avars and Persians advanced to the walls of Constantinople, before the tidal wave of Muslim Arab conquest swept away much of the empire. It has been argued that Justinian's costly wars left the Eastern Roman Empire exhausted, unable to resist these new threats. But recent assessments place more emphasis on the blunders of his successors. Justinian had been immensely fortunate to be served by one of the great generals of Roman history, even though he did not always repay his loyalty. In all his commands, Belisarius distinguished himself as loyal, intelligent, humane, and decisive. He was a skilled tactician who defied the odds at Dara. He waged a hearts and mind campaign to retake North Africa, almost without loss.
Glorious.
He liberated Rome and held it in 2 desperate sieges.
Correct. Aurelian would be proud of you.
He has been called the last Roman. The empire would see few generals of his stature again. Big thanks to Legendarian for providing our...
Well, my fellow Romans, we had a fun adventure. It was with victories, triumphs, and glory, betrayal, deceit, and stupidity, the ups and downs, the backwards, the forwards, the glorious days of Rome before it all goes away. This was a fun adventure, and this was a fun series to enjoy, and it's a shame to see it end. I do recommend another series, Fall of Civilization podcast. My favorite ones are the 2-part series that was done about Byzantium. The second one is the Easter Island, and the third one is the Bronze Age collapse. I recommend that YouTube channel, but also, please, folks, please, you hit cool cats. We here at Americans Learn ask all of you lovely, beautiful, intelligent, outstanding guys and gals to please support the original content creator. That link is in the description box below. And what can we take away from this? Well, obviously, the Roman emperors, there's been some great ones, legendary ones, and then there have been foolish, stupid ones. And unfortunately, Many of the following successors of Justinian and afterwards made a lot of errors, made a lot of mistakes, made a lot of dumb decisions. Not 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 smart decisions, dumb decisions. Very, very dumb. Very, very dumb indeed. But for one moment, we all grabbed our swords and shields and we made Rome great again. By making Rome great again, well, perhaps someday we shall see the empire return. Maybe. Or you could play Medieval 2 Total War and or whatever other game series and rebuild and save the Roman Empire or do that. I know when I play Medieval 2 Total War, when I had opportunities and time to play video games, I don't have much time now. I rebuild the Roman Empire. I conquer the whole world. But this was fun. Obviously, I find Procopius's alternate history to be very questionable. I don't know. Maybe the guy decided just to say, "Hey, f you guys. I'm going to write a book to troll all of you." Who knows? Who knows? He missed his chance to be born in the internet era, the era that we live in. So, folks, as I get ready to head on out and cry for the loss of Belisarius, the last true Roman, what Roman figure, be it in ancient antiquity or during the time of the Republic or during the time of the Empire or either that in the Eastern Empire, stands out to you? Because we all know about the famous ones, but are there any Roman historical figures, men or women, that you feel deserves a spot on the stage, that should have the spotlight put on them? Type in the comment section below. Until then, take care, my true Romans, and enjoy your true Roman bread.